So I've been trying to make sense of this story that is found in Numbers chapter 16, and it's pretty well known. It's called Korah's Rebellion to most, and it is an important chapter to understand for the next chapter, which is this whole uh, the budding of Aaron's rod, and it's very symbolic. And so I've been wrestling with this story for a little bit to try to make sense of it, and there are numerous amounts of applications and ideas in the story. But one of the ones that I found interesting was this the catastrophe that comes as a result of individuals wanting to pursue unearned status in a hierarchy in society in a structural setup in which these individuals already possess a position, but they are disgruntled with their position or feel as if those who are above them do not deserve the positions that they're in, and they need to be ousted. And um, it's not a very uncommon. It's not a very uncommon thing to think about. I mean, this is something that I think is spoken about in the West a lot, and many people have contentions about who is above them and why they are, and if that position is has come to them through some unearned privilege. And so, the story kind of in some ways talks about that. And so in Numbers chapter 16, you have um, these what it is four individuals who rise up against Moses and Aaron, and with them came 250 of these Israelite men that were well known in the community and had been appointed members of the council. So they had a position, they had status, and they had notoriety, if you will. But it says that they came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" And so, to them, they were looking at Moses and Aaron as the leaders of this entire community, and so they were at the top of the hierarchy, and then underneath them were what you would say these individuals, and so they come with this disgruntled attitude as to why they have set themselves above the Lord's assembly, and already in the question is well, an assumption, and the assumption is in their question, why do you set yourselves over the Lord's assembly? And really, what this will explore is not that these individuals have set themselves over the assembly, is that they have been chosen to be above the assembly. They did not set themselves in this position. And in fact, one thing you can gather is that and one thing that you learn from this story is that you have the people who want to be the leaders and who want to be leaders the most are the people that we have to be suspicious of. It is usually those individuals who do not want to be leaders but respond to a calling, that find themselves in leadership position, that are the ones that you more likely want as leaders. And there's various reasons for that, but Moses and Aaron for sure were not individuals who um, sought to become leaders. They responded to a calling and they acted upon this calling, and they found themselves in this position. And so, um, as a result of this, it says that Moses falls face down. Um, and so the idea here is that Moses is just like, I can't I can't believe that this is again the conclusion. And I say again because there have been many times where this to a certain degree had been explored, but it's again this showcase of um, not not being able to understand how people could be so oblivious to the fact that these individuals have not placed themselves on top, but they have found themselves there. And there is something key there too, which we'll get to with Aaron's rod budding, which is the idea that they have gone through the steps that qualify somebody as a leader. And many of these individuals did not want to go or did not go through the steps that will qualify one to be a leader. Um, Wisdom and age, and they're kind of both very much in the same, they come hand in hand together sometimes. Um, but it really strikes on this desire for unearned status, or position on top of the hierarchy without um, the required discipline and steps to be able to get to that. So, and anyhow, what ends up taking place is that um, the ground swallows up these individuals that are complaining, and the 250 that were also with them were stricken down. And well, and it's the idea of how a rebellion against, structures will take everybody down. And the things that the virus of this rebellion against systems and, structures of system, which in some ways is understandable, that sort of rebellion needs to be squashed because they will be like a plague and contaminate the people. And well, if you go to the rest of the story, that's exactly what happens, because of the rest of the people. Um, in fact, even before getting into that, um, there's this part where Moses summons these individuals that are complaining, but they said, "We will not come." And they say, "Isn't it enough that you have brought us out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? And now also you want to lord it over us. And moreover, you have not brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of the fields and the vineyards. Do you want to treat these men as slaves? No, we will not come." And so there's this idea that they don't even want to come to the table of negotiation. They want to have everything on their own terms. And there's a sense of entitlement here. And I think you can see some of that happening today in society. There's a sense of entitlement that people should hold positions that are due and owed to them, um, which is, of course, uh, debatable. And so um, this is again what happens. And then what ends up happening later on, it says that the next day the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron, said, "You have killed the Lord's people." And so again, they have put the blame on these leaders. And there's an exploration here about how leaders get blamed for everything because they are the leaders, even though there's nuance to what is taking place. But again, here you have this idea that without the correct understanding, you have this community now that has been infected by this plague, um, of this virus that didn't have to exist if individuals would understand their role in the structure and the hierarchy, and not to view it as a lesser role. And in fact, that is what Moses proposes to these individuals, saying, well, hey, listen, is it not enough for you to have the positions that you have, that you want more? And this is definitely something that happens a lot in the West, I would say. I mean, it's societal, but um, we view certain roles as being lesser than, and so we see other roles as being more important, and so then we want to take those roles. And it's very much more obvious in the West, where there's an individualistic society, right? And so instead of seeing the role that you play in the collective as being this body system, then you want to take another position. And this kind of idea and concept is explored in the New Testament and the Gospels, with Christ saying, um, can the right hand say to the left hand, or whatever it was, or to, "I do not need you," right? And so it's the understanding of the role that you play and how it is still important, even though it may not seem as the most important. So anyhow, it says, continues, that this plague that spread through the camp killed 14,700 people. And there's this idea there that says um, that um, Moses stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. And so there's this mediation between that which no longer lives as a consequence of its um, consequences of selfish desires for status, and this contrast with those who are living, who can merge with the dead, if you will, through accepting those ideologies. It's almost, in a sense, Moses stands between the two to not allow the union of both, because the union of both will result in the death of the other. And so that's what takes place. And so what I find fascinating, though, however, is in the next chapter. And so this is the budding of Aaron's staff. And essentially what takes place is that God asks Moses to tell all these leaders from these different communities, these 12 tribes, to bring a staff in front of the of where is it? It is in front of the tabernacle. And so to bring it to the sanctuary. And so the idea is, and the reason why it's the rod is symbolic of leadership, right? The rod is what guides, and the rod, from the shepherd's perspective, it's this leadership. And so they're all asked to bring a staff forward and to have the name engraved of this individual who is the leader in said tribe and community, along with Aaron. And the idea was, it says, the staff belonging to the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of this constant grumbling against you by the Israelites. And so the idea is that I will showcase a miracle um, to cement the fact that I am the one who chooses leaders, and it's not leaders who choose themselves, right? And so it kind of beckons to this idea that those who should lead are the ones that are called and needed because they offer something that the people are lacking, but it's not from this selfish motivation of wanting to be at the top, right? And so, okay, so then what happened? Well, it says the next day Moses entered the tent and saw Aaron's staff, which represented the tribe of Levi, had not only sprouted, but had budded, blossomed, and produced almonds. And so you have the whole sequential process of growth. And so it sprouted, it budded, it blossomed, and then it produced fruit. And so, you have to remember, this is the same Aaron who, and his rod, which was the same rod that ate the snakes that turned into a snake itself to eat the other snakes of Pharaoh. It was the same rod that turned the turned the river Nile into blood. And so it's the same rod that had been there from the beginning, right? And so you can kind of so what you gather from the story is that Aaron's rod, which is symbolic of Aaron, had gone through the rite of passage, if we will, to even be considered uh, a leader. That is to say that Aaron went through that process, because Aaron not only um, responded to the calling, and there's and the response to the calling is the idea that when you do, there's some sprouting process that takes place, right? And then after you continue to go through this process, as Aaron had been there from the beginning, right? He had been there from Moses's secondhand man, if you will, right in the beginning, and he was there with all these situations with Pharaoh, and he was there through the Red Sea crossing. He was there through all these pinnacle points, and so he had proven himself to be a leader. And then, of course, it's no coincidence that it said that it blossomed and produced almonds, which is the idea that Aaron's leadership had produced fruits worthy enough to be eaten. That is to say that Aaron's leadership had fed the people to a certain way, if you will. And so that's a way of examining leaders today, is like, are they going through this process? Are they budding? Are they producing? Are they sprouting? Are they producing, food that will feed the people? And well, the answer in Aaron's case is that it did. And so, because of that, it says the Lord said to Moses, "Put Aaron's staff in front of the ark of the covenant of the law, to be kept as a sign to the rebellious. This will put an end to their grumbling against me, so that they will not die." And so the idea is that God is saying, well, listen, what is killing people is the rebellion. It's not what has happened as a consequence of the rebellion, which is kind of the idea that the serpents in the desert were not what was killing the children of Israel. It was just a mechanism to be able to end their life after, by their own thoughts and selfish ambitions, they were being killed. And so it's the same idea here: is in order to prevent death, well, rebellion leads to the death of many, right? And so and you can see that throughout history, right? And um, the idea here is that if we understand our role in the structure in the system, and we do not pursue roles and positions that are unearned, that are not due to us, or we pursue roles from selfish intent for gratification, for recognition. Well, when you attain a position of leadership because of those things, it is very often that the people will perish because of that. And you can examine leaders throughout history, even in modern times, like, and not to necessarily get political, but when you have individuals with ambition of self glorification, they tend to cause, though they may produce some things that are well for society, they tend to produce division, and they tend to produce a plague amongst the people, that ends up killing more. And you can attribute that to whoever you want to attribute in the modern context. But I think this story is such a phenomenal way of understanding um, how the desire for unearned status can not only bring death to the individuals who pursue it, whether it's psychologically or physically, but also to the society around them.